Welcome to Making It Fun, everybody. I am your host, Rob Appell from Michael Miller Fabrics, and literally just yesterday I had a small pile of fabric and a really big idea. I made myself a decent stack of half square triangles of a few different colors and converted it into this awesome tutorial for today. We're gonna put together a star and this fun ribbon pull project. You can make it into a table runner or a door hanger or whatever you want, as long as you're making it fun. Let's get started. Today's project is as easy as the supply list. We're dealing with 3 fabrics, of course, Michael Miller. I have the blue is the marble, the red is the hash dot, and the white is their Krystal fabric. Of the blue and the red, you're gonna use 3/4 of a yard. For the project my size, of the white, you're gonna use a 1/2 of a yard. What I want you to make is 3 strips of 5" by 45, and then make those into the squares of the red, the blue, and the white. You're gonna need 4 strips at 2.5 inches by the width of the fabric for the binding on the project. That's why you needed that extra bit of red. You're gonna need a 4th strip of the blue cut into that 5" squares. You're gonna just need more of the blue. And we're also gonna need 2 strips cut at 3 1/4 by the width of the fabric, and then cut down, subcut into 3 1/4 inch squares. Those are gonna be my fill-in spaces. You can see I have already started the star portion. So this is what it looks like. You always wanna take one of your squares and a second one of your squares and lay them right sides together. Go to your sewing machine, and with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, I'm gonna go around all 4 sides. I sew off the edge. My needle's down, I pivot my fabric, I do not cut my threads. Pivot. Pivot for the final side. Come down through here. I'm just in the habit of backstitching, thread cutting. Now as I cut over to my cutting space here, what I'm gonna do is I wanna first dog ear these corners. I'm just taking off the excess edges, but I am not cutting the threads I've just used to sew through. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make myself a cut where I go right through the crosshairs. So cross here. Should have moved my triangle onto a lazy Susan. Cross there, just like that. And then I bounce them over to the pressing board. I like to keep them all stacked and set up for pressing to the dark side. The iron wasn't turned on, so I've been waiting for quite a while, actually. I'm trying to hold still. Oh, I just realized I'm hungry too. I need a little snack. Mike, can you get us a snack? The longest I've ever waited for an iron to heat up in my life. Oh, it was ready. Never mind. One of the things I think I actually really enjoy about quilting is the assembly and the working in the assembly line process. It brings me great joy to see all of these same half square triangles coming off of my stack. You can see I have them stacked, so all the dark fabrics were up, so that the little corners are right at my fingers, and all of this is working together so very nicely just to make my life efficient. I'm gonna run until my iron stops steaming. I'm using a steam process in the iron right now just to make sure that I get these nice and crisp. Okay, so I'm gonna go 2 more triangles after the steam slows down because I was, almost there. Same thing, stay organized. Go into the ones that are already cooled. And now that all of the half square triangles have been completed, they have been pressed back to right sides out, they are stacked and organized, we are ready to dive into the 2 designs you need to make all of the blocks for today's project. Let's start with that simple star, the one we're gonna build. We're just gonna build one of them. So we did make 1 red and white squares combo. And so basically let's start in the middle with a pinwheel formula. So basically opposites. as you go around. So that's your pinwheel like that. Now to make out the rest of the star, the blue is the background, the blue is the space. That's our neutral color. So you're going to go ahead and elongate the points of the star by using the blue and white or the blue and red half square triangle combinations. So that's making that white into the parallelogram shape there. You'll do the same with your red and blue combinations like this. Now, these fill-in squares, I made my half square triangles. They are not 1/2 of an inch. They are 3 1/4 inches. So I knew how large to make these fill-in squares. So I have cut at least 4 for this portion. I have 2 rows worth cut down. So that right there basically fills in and makes the entire star. Put all of that together first, so you can set it aside, and then we can go ahead and build in the rows for our ribbon pole. And the ribbon pole is a whole other design, and actually it requires 3 rows. So we're gonna have this extra fill-in row we're gonna build out of a blue strip, where I'm just gonna keep stacking more and more of my blue 3 1/4 inch squares to kind of neutralize and keep the blue separating the ribbon poles. Now onto the ribbon pole, and the ribbon pole is like a weave of 2 different colors of ribbon over a pole color. So if you think of it right now, we're just going to use this blue as our pole color, and I have found for myself it always is easiest to find one color and start with it in a peak. Okay, and in my project I started with the white, and the white actually goes over this blue imaginary pole you're seeing. So let's stretch all of that ribbon across the pole first so that we can see the design coming together. And actually it makes this parallelogram in the center there too. So I've dropped down 1 row. That's going to drop in there. So this starts to show the orientation of the white ribbon, and then the red ribbon is going to fall in here like this. But I've also learned after doing this enough times that you have this peak and this peak. So a peak, and I'm going to start to build my next peak here, which helps me set the second ribbon into play in the ribbon pull or the ribbon twist. So now the red is going to cross over, completing the whole piece of ribbon with that other half square triangle. And then here I'm going to start to form the other peak. So the peaks are going to be in opposite colors. So that helps me know that in this spot, then I can come in and fill in 1 white to be a peak, 1 white to be a peak there. And then the whites are parallelograms, the blues are parallelograms, the reds are parallelograms. So if this helps you see it this way, there's another parallelogram and the white is forming. So then I continue to wrap my white around. And then at the end of the block, I leave 1 ribbon hanging loose. I put in a square of a solid blue. We also started with that square of the solid blue to show the pole. Of course, this is not the complete row. I'm just showing you what you can see here on camera. And then I'm going to build in for my last peak, just like this. And then I go to the sewing machine. But as I'm building these at the sewing machine, I want to assemble these long rows first, so then I can just put them together as 3 long strips. So let's break this down real quick so you can see what you're looking at. There, this is easier. This way you can see the way that the actual rows will stitch together. So you have rows that sew together with peaks. So you're looking at the reds coming together in a peak, the blues coming together in a peak, and then the middle row, just these parallelograms. So they're coming together actually like opposite sides. Seam over here, seam over here. So just keep that in mind as you go through the machine, right sides together, 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'll see you in a second. So as I continue to assemble the squares, I'm just lining up each square as I go, bringing it over to the machine. Our last square in this row is going to be a solid, so there's really no actual seam to match up. So I'm just going to grab it here. I am back stitching at each beginning and end. It really helps secure everything. Now, let me point out kind of where we're at here. This is the row where I have my star, right? We've built that out, and I'm gonna have that up here. And now I have assembled 2 different styles of rows. These rows here have the peaks up in the top, and I want to see something here. If I rotate them, oh, this is great. I can tell you to make two that are identical that way. Pointing out starting with the white, finishing with the red also. And then in the middle row, I started with a solid here, and then the orientation changes. Instead of being the peaks or the little tent shapes, I have my parallelograms like this. What is just going to go ahead and form these. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to press these with intention, making my life so easy. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to start with one row. I'm going to hold it up in the air, and in my brain I know this is the bottom of that row, and I'm just going to go ahead and begin pressing these. Try not to stretch, keeping everything nice and crisp. And I'm going to press the union of each two squares right now up, and on the next one I'm going to press it down so that it'll be very easy to nest these rows together as I assemble. And that'll be the next thing I do, is sew the rows together. Those ones went up, so now I'm going to grab the other side and rotate. That's my trick, to keep it the correct orientation as I come to the ironing board. The solids, I could always spin this strip around if I somehow have pressed it wrong, so I'm not too concerned about this one. But all the other ones have already been set nice to nest. I love to look at my next piece, my add-on piece. So technically this is row 1, here's row 2. So I'm going to fold this as I get ready to go to the machines. But now I want to spin this so that I'm looking at my row 2 piece. This is important so that as I open up the seam, I can sew on the row 3 piece. It's a really good habit. As is backstitching, always backstitch when possible. And now I can just feel these little seams. Look, right here and right here, I'm going to nest that together. And that's going to really help my squares line up, which in the long run is going to really help my points line up. Some folks have been quilting so long, that's what they're after, having their points match up. Others just want to stay warm. So, of course, this is based on your level of accuracy, but if you want your points to match up, this nesting of your seams is a really nice trick. And the other benefit of nesting those seams is all the way at the end, the rows have matched up perfectly. So I'm going to cut that thread. Now, this is my second row, so I'm going to go ahead and get ready to put on my third row. Let's move these out of the way. Set that thread. Now I'm going to push in here with the iron as I'm lifting up. There is no dark side any longer that I can really account for, so I'm pushing that all to one direction. I'm smiling right now ear to ear because I can see that those first set of points got close enough that I can certainly stay warm. Please double check your orientation. Better stop for one last trick. Now, the seams, we were talking about nesting a moment ago. The seams now on the bottom side are facing uphill. So the trick is, as I start to sew, now you're looking at this part right here with the needle camera, but I'm actually looking down here where the seam is hitting the edge of the machine. I do this trick, I kind of lift up in the air. This was the seam I was talking about. And then this is up in the air as I approach this. And at this point now, when I drop it on the machine, you can see it's cleared the edge and that seam is still facing up this direction. It lays flat there. I come in, I nest that other seam right like that. And then I just kind of pinch or touch that and let it go all the way through to the machine. So I've already lifted up. That series of fabrics is heading up that direction. Do a little back stitch. Head into the iron. Check to make sure my seams are working in my favor there as I get ready to add on the blue row. So I'm going to match up that first series of seams again, and now I'm just going to fly through this business as usual. Blue row's on, we're going to press it open, put the star at the top. Because I would like this to look like an American flag, my orientation right now and having this blue stripe divide the two ribbon pole stripes, I have now determined this is going to go in right here, and I'm rotating it to see if I have any choice, and I like the way the whites and the reds kind of line in here, so this is the way it's going to work. I'm just going to go ahead and take this star right now, flop it over, and so on this seam I want the heavier weight of material, so my big series, the ribbon pole series, is on the table right now with the small square star coming in on top. I really didn't calculate for nesting in these seams much, so you're just gonna make sure the seams match up. Looks like the first one is nested, all the better. All right, there you see it, there you have it. That is the first half of the entire project right there. So what I'm gonna go ahead now is I'm gonna go ahead and put together the other half. It's gonna be all the way.
Oh wait, I've got it right here for you. Like this, you mean?
Ready for
Check it
that
out.
yet.
Perfect.
I'm still explaining what we're gonna do to
What do
get
you
to
mean?
that spot. Could
Oh,
you come
well
back
maybe
in
if
a
I
few
come
minutes,
back with it
please?
all quilted, that would be making it fun.
How rude, right? What I was gonna say is we're gonna build the other half of the quilt top, all as the ribbon poles, assemble it, and I'll show you that in a second.
You wanted quilting? Well, I'm gonna add binding to that as well. That's right, we are all finished with the project. I told you it'd be super simple, right? Looks great, I think, if I may say so myself. Now, for the machine quilting, I did a very easy process. I put in some Aurifil cotton thread in a matching blue color, and I just filled in the blue area. Easier to see from the backside, and those who have requested in the past, if you could see my backside. Anyways, you're welcome. Here you go. And it's kind of fun. I'm not sure if you can tell, but I just kind of did some freestyle stars in there just to kind of fill in the motif as well. I did not spend any time or thread in the red or the white area, so it has a nice little extra bit of pucker. You could, of course, increase this. I almost recommend, if you have a nice big table at home, that you make this twice the length and put the star on the other side in the opposite corner for a really wonderful, super long table runner. This one here is finishing at about 43 inches by 18 inches. So if you had a 6-foot table, wow, with those stars hanging off, that'd be fantastic. But again, I just wanted to put together a really fun project for you and a basic way to play with your half square triangles. I certainly hope you enjoyed today's show. We will see you next time at Making It Fun. I'm glad to see you're still there. Hey, if you insist on spending all day on YouTube, great with me. Please check out a few of my other videos. I think they're fantastic. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified. We'll see you next time for another helping of fun.